Law and Order, Criminal Minds, Psycho, Sherlock Holmes, Castle. What do all these have in common? They're murder mysteries. Just like the book that I read called The Beautiful Mystery by Louise Perry. This book takes place in Canada, and it is about the Chief Inspector Gamache, and his assistant Beauvoir. They are called to a monastery that is like hundreds of years old, that people thought at one time was non-existent anymore. And there was a murder of one of the monks. So they go to figure out who murdered him, obviously. And it was the choir master who was murdered. And that's why I picked this book, because I'm a music education major, and and the fact that this had to do with music was intriguing to me. Also, the fact that it was a murder mystery, because I really like those. And this monastery is very hard to find. Not a lot of people find it, and I would like to read you a portion of this. It's from near the beginning of the book. It says, all were turned away at the gate. Beauvoir realized he'd seen this view before, in photographs. What they now saw had become a popular poster and was somewhat disingenuously used by Tourisme Quebec to promote the province. A place no one was allowed to visit was used to lure visitors. Beauvoir also leaned forward. At the very end of the bay a fortress stood, like a rock cut. Its steeple rose as though propelled from the earth, the result of some seismic event. Off to the sides were wings, or arms, open in benediction or invitation. A harbor, a safe embrace in the wilderness. A deception. This was near mythical monastery of St. Gilbert-Entrelou, the home of 24 cloistered contemplative monks who had built their abbey as far from civilization as they could get. It had taken hundreds of years for civilization to find them, but the silent monks had had the last word. 24 men had stepped beyond the door. It had closed, and not another living soul had been admitted until today. Chief Inspector Gamache, Jean-Guy Beauvoir, and Captain Charbonneau were about to be let in. Their ticket was a dead man. So that's kind of the beginning plot of the book. No one of the monks, no one is fessing up to the murder. It happened after one of their services in the morning, so it happened around 10 or 11 a.m. And it happened in the abbot, who is the main person in charge of the monastery. It happened in the abbot's private garden. So, and not a lot of people knew about the garden, and so it was very interesting that he would be murdered there. Now, only a few people were allowed in the garden and even knew about the garden, because it was hidden behind a bookcase, and it was the abbot's private garden. And so Frere Matthew is the one who was murdered. He was the music director, and the abbot were like best friends, and I think they sat in there together quite often. And so the fact that he was found in there, but the abbot didn't seem to have done it, was very interesting. So Gamache and Beauvoir get into this monastery, and they start asking questions. And after a little while, the abbot revokes the vow of silence in order to help the investigation along. So the monks are now, if they are asked anything by Gamache or Beauvoir, they are to answer, because they want to get this whole thing solved just like the inspectors do. And so, Gamache and Beauvoir, they're asking a lot of questions, and they just want to figure it out, but it's being so difficult because the monks have a schedule. They always do like the same thing every day, and they all had somewhere that they were accounted for, that someone had seen them. And so they're having just this problem, trying to put it all together, but they don't give up. They keep going, and they just double check every monk. They ask them, they talk to them more than once. They ask, they start with just talking about things that are interesting to the monk that they're talking to. They go to all the masses, and actually they end up really liking the masses. This monastery and these monks, this group of monks, is very looked up upon for their music. Their music is just the most beautiful of all of the monks in the monasteries, and that is what brings people to them. That's what they look for when they go out to look for more monks, more brothers. One of the requirements is that they are able to sing, and sing well, and in order to help their music to be beautiful and holy, and they want it to be lifted up to God in the most pure form. And so that is something that they look for. And so Beauvoir and Gamache, they talk to people who were close to the abbot, and they talk to people who were close to Friar Matthew, who's the one who died. And they realize that there's a sort of a rift in between the two, and that there are actually the abbot's men, and there are the prior's men, Friar Matthew's men. And that there is somewhat of a split, even though some people may not want to think so. So this goes on, and they get somewhere, and then they go back a few steps, and then they go forward, and then they go back. But to find out the ending and who did it, you just have to, read it yourself. I really liked this book. I love murder mysteries, so I found it very interesting. It's rather long and mostly only talks about the investigation, but it is interesting to think about what kind of information you could get from people who are quiet all of the time, and how much can be read from a person about what they are thinking with just the slightest movements, because the monks, they catch everything that Gamache or Beauvoir are thinking, even before they know they're thinking it. So that's interesting to think about while you're reading the book. And so just to recap, I read the book The Beautiful Mystery by Louise Perry. And if you're into murder mysteries, or you really like Gregorian chant, or are a music person, I think you would really enjoy this book. Thank you.